I think we have a point of question of privilege from the honourable member for Vancouver East.
Mr. Speaker, I sent you a notice of my intention of raising a question of privilege related to the revelation contained in the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians' Special Report on Foreign Interference in Canada's Democratic Processes and Institutions. The committee reviewed over 4,000 documents, including over 1,000 intelligence products. The NSICOP report is an alarming wake-up call about the depth and insidious nature of hostile foreign state actors' effort to covertly undermine Canada's democratic processes and institutions. China, followed by India, are identified as the most aggressive foreign states that are deploying wide-ranging and multifaceted tactics in foreign interference activities in Canada. The shocking allegations that some members of Parliament, quote, wittingly or semi-wittingly, end quote, worked with foreign state actors is not only unsettling, but a betrayal to Canadians that trusted them to act in Canada's best interest and not a foreign state. The report did not provide any names, and as such, all 338 members of this House, including those who have since left this chamber, are under a cloud of suspicion for intentionally or semi-intentionally working with a foreign state to undermine Canada's democratic processes and institutions. Mr. Speaker, my intervention today will not cover the national security aspect of this extremely concerning situation, but instead will focus on the damage of the reputation of all members of the House of Commons. In House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 3rd edition, page 107 outlines the rights and immunities of members of Parliament. There's a section about freedom from obstruction, interference, intimidation, and molestation. It states, quote, members of Parliament, by the nature of their office and the variety of work they are called upon to perform, come into contact with a wide range of individuals and groups. Members can therefore be subjected to all manners of interference, obstruction, and influences. And on page 112, it goes on to say, quote, the unjust damaging of a member's good name might be seen as constituting an obstruction if the member is prevented from performing his or her parliamentary functions. In 1987, Speaker Fraser stated, the privileges of a member are violated by any action which might impede him or her in the fulfillment of his or her duties and functions. It is obvious that the unjust damaging of a reputation could constitute such an impediment, end quote. Mr. Speaker, I would submit that what has been revealed in the NSICOP report constitutes such an impediment for all members of Parliament. Throughout the report, there were many references of how some parliamentarians are willing participants with foreign states. Take, for example, paragraph 55 of the NSICOP report noted that, quote, some elected officials began wittingly assisting foreign state actors soon after the election, end quote. It goes on to say, quote, members of Parliament who worked to influence their colleagues on India's behalf and proactively provided confidential information to Indian officials, end quote. Paragraph 56 stated, quote, a textbook example of foreign interference that saw a foreign state supporting a witting politician, end quote. Paragraph 59 stated, quote, PRC had established an informal foreign interference network. The network worked in loose coordination with one another and with guidance from the consulate to covertly support or oppose candidates in the 2019 federal election. The network has some contact with at least 11 candidates and 13 campaign staffers, some of whom appear to be wittingly working for the PRC. Network's effort to keep federal political candidates away from events that the PRC considered to be anti-China, such as pro-Hong Kong rally, noted similar activities by another network in the riding of Don Valley North, and identify specific individuals involved. Paragraph 68 stated, quote, an Indian proxy claims to have repeatedly transferred funds from India to politicians at all levels of government in return for political favors, including raising issues in Parliament at the proxy's request. Paragraph 72 stated that, quote, PRC officials allegedly interfered in the leadership races of the Conservative Party of Canada. Following this, paragraph 73 noted, quote, India's alleged interference in a Conservative Party of Canada's leadership race. Paragraph 164 stated, quote, some parliamentarians are, in the words of the intelligence services, semi-witting or witting participants in the efforts of foreign states to interfere in our politics. In paragraph 57, it even noted an example of a former MP, and the report is stated, quote, of a particularly concerning case of a then member of parliament maintaining a relationship with a foreign intelligence officer. According to CSIS, the member of parliament sought to arrange a meeting in a foreign state with a senior intelligence official and also proactively provided the intelligence officer with information provided in confidence. In the face of such alarming revelation, without knowledge of who the elected official is associated with each allegation, it means that all members are tainted and that the reputation of the whole House is put in question. And since China and India are the two top countries cited as most aggressive in foreign interference activities, I would submit that for those of us who are Chinese Canadians or Indo-Canadians, we are at greater and heightened risks of unjust reputational damage. Mr. Speaker, there are a few examples throughout the years of similar situation where a prima facie case of privilege was found because the reputation of the House was put in question. In March 1966, the House was gripped for several days with the Munsinger case when the Minister of Justice, Mr. Cardin, alleged improper conduct on the part of ministers in the former Diefenbaker government. Mr. Cardin stated that certain members of the House were involved with Greta Munsinger, a, quote, self-admitted espionage agent, end quote, in the employ of the, quote, Russian intelligence service, end quote. On March 10th, 4 related questions of privilege were raised by the members related to the statement made by Minister Cardin. Speaker Lamoureux ruled immediately that there was a prima facie case of privilege, even though all 4 motions were ultimately ruled out of order by the chair because of various reasons. One was disallowed immediately because the motion was too general and did not specify the charges against the minister. One requested that the minister substantiate his charges, and the other 2 motions sought the resignation of Minister Cardin. Then in May 1976, a former member of parliament, Mr. Coquette, was quoted as saying while giving testimony in open court, quote, if everyone who had ever taken or given $600 or $700 bribes in their life were arrested, 50% of the MPs would no longer be sitting. I know it because I was an MP for 5 years, end quote. The matter was raised as a question of privilege, and Speaker Jerome ruled immediately and stated that he had no difficulty in agreeing that there was indeed a question of privilege. We also had a situation in 1983 where several articles in the Montreal Gazette were alleging that Mr. Mackenzie, member of Lincoln, was a paid lobbyist. Speaker Chauvet, in her ruling of March 22, 1983, said, quote, an allegation of criminal or other dishonorable conduct inevitably affects the member's ability to function effectively while the matter remains unresolved. From selected decisions of Speaker Jenny Kwan, we can read about this case. Quote, not only do defamatory allegations about members place the entire institution of Parliament under a cloud, they also prevent members from performing their duties as long as the matter remains unresolved. Since, as one authority states, such allegations brings members into hatred, contempt, or ridicule. Mr. Speaker, I fear that this is where we're at under these circumstances. Without disclosure of the names of the parliamentarians that are, quote, wittingly or semi-wittingly, that are witting or semi-witting participants in the efforts of foreign states to interfere in our politics, we may subject all members of the House, including former and sitting MPs, to hatred, contempt, or ridicule. Indeed, this is already happening. Outside this chamber just yesterday, there were individuals shouting, questioning, jeering about who the traitors may be. And this is as members of parliament walk past these individuals on their way to this House to do their work. I believe we must find a way to disclose who are the MPs knowingly, intentionally, wittingly, or semi-wittingly engaging with foreign states or their proxies to undermine Canada's democratic processes and institutions. I believe this can be done in a way that does not compromise national security. If there continue to be no consequences for MPs who knowingly help foreign governments act against Canadian interests, we will continue to be an easy target. It will further erode the trust and faith Canadians have in our democratic processes. If allowed to continue, it will further impugn the integrity of this House. Revealing which member of parliament, former or present, is a willing participant of foreign interference activities would not only have the effect of deterring this kind of behavior, it will send a clear message to those foreign states that this will not be able to continue, that they will not be able to continue to use parliamentarians in this way. It will further reassure the public of the integrity of this House. Mr. Speaker, I strongly believe that the House should refer the matter to the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. A possible way to deal with the issue would be for committee members to undergo the necessary security screening to examine the unredacted report, look into the allegations of, quote, parliamentarians who are wittingly or semi-wittingly participants in efforts of foreign states to interfere in our politics. Allow the named parliamentarians to be informed and to come before the committee as witnesses and to explore options on how to disclose the named parliamentarians without compromising national security or police investigations of the matter. Mr. Speaker, if you find a prima facie case of privilege in this case, here's the motion that I would move: that the matter of reputational harm done to all members of Parliament as a consequence of the redaction of parliamentarians' name from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, quote, NSICOP report entitled Special Report on Foreign Interference in Canada's Democratic Processes and Institutions, be referred to the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the honourable member, and it will be taken under advisement, and the chair will come back to the honourable member as soon as possible. L'honourable